Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nana Firman. I'm the Muslim Outreach Director for Green Faith, a global interfaith environmental and climate justice network. I came from a faraway place at the meeting point of three major continental plates on Earth, which happens to be one of the most disaster prone countries in the world. However, we are blessed with many surrounding volcanoes, lush, thick rainforests, exotic species of flora and fauna, terraces of paddy rice field, pointed roof traditional homes, close-knit communities, home of the dinosaurs era, the Komodo dragon. More than 17,000 islands spread out like emerald necklace, thousands of miles beautiful beaches, and amazing underwater life. The place that I call home, a unique archipelagic country, happens to have the most populated Muslim in the world. It's Indonesia. When I returned home to Indonesia in 1998, after finishing my study in industrial design and urban design for several years in the United States, I had a vision of designing a Medina, an Islamic village, which later I realized what I really meant was an eco village. But back then, without knowing what it took to accomplish that, not until in 2001, as a regional planner, I had to work with an amazing geological team from whom I learned a lot about the Earth's structure and its movement, which then made me realize the importance of geological knowledge in my professional field of designing towns and cities, especially in the volatile yet beautiful homeland of mine, Indonesia, which is also known as the Ring of Fire region. But unbeknown to me at that time, another challenge would be presented to me a few years later. In early 2005, I was called upon by the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, the WWF, as the world's largest conservation organization, to aid in the relief efforts in Aceh, the northern tip of Sumatra Island, immediately after the earthquake and tsunami had struck the Indian Ocean in the late December 2004. I was ready to lead a green reconstruction effort, but found myself having a tough time persuading local community to take sustainability into consideration in their rebuilding efforts. Some of my colleagues noted my struggle working in the region, which is predominantly religious Muslims, and made a suggestion to use the Islamic narratives as a way to find a common ground. Up to that point, I had never seen the connection. So I ended up going back to the Quran and Sunnah to look for environmental messages. And to my surprise, I was so overwhelmed as I found so many. So I started to connect the dots between environmental stewardship as the Khalifa upon this earth that I wanted to catalyze and the faith I share with the community. And Alhamdulillah, the people understood better when I actually used Islamic teaching to emphasize my point. I started to engage with the local ulama and imam, and then people started to get involved in my program. From then on, whether I work on sustainable cities or climate change issues, I always incorporated Islamic teachings and traditions. And to be very honest, such challenges have enhanced my awareness and increased my passion in the field of ecosystem balance and ecological sustainability. This passion made me realize that I was practicing all along my own Islamic faith that has been inculcated in me during my youth by my parents. My mother was always into planting trees and medicinal herbs, while my father was always conscious about saving water for the future generation. And all my teachers from kindergarten, elementary to high school, they all somehow taught me that all human beings are the guardians of this earth and we should live with it in harmony. So fast forward, In 2012, after I got married with my wonderful husband, I moved back to the United States, to San Diego to be exact, just a couple weeks before Ramadan started. I then attended iftar at different masajid during the month of Ramadan, and I noticed that the community used disposable disware and utensil and threw away a lot of food. It really bothered me. I complained to my husband when I got home. So he said, why not talking to the imam? The opportunity presented several months later, and I convinced Imam Toha Hassan of Islamic Center in San Diego to let me share my story on environmental sustainability and climate change activism, and I would present it from the Islamic perspective. So I did my first green talk in the masjid during the Earth Day in April 2013. And I also mentioned at that time about making Ramadan with environmental consciousness, a green Ramadan campaign. The Imam then mentioned about that to other masjid in San Diego and encouraged them to invite me to talk to their community as well about Islam and environment. So Alhamdulillah, that year, several masajid in San Diego started their Green Ramadan program. At the same time, Green Faith offered me to join their 18-month fellowship program. So I accepted my new challenge and dived even deeper by working with other faith leaders and communities. Today, our world is in deplorable state. Our earth is in the sad situation. Our lifestyle, from our food consumption, housing, purchasing, and transportation habits, have created an ecological crisis. The greenhouse gases in the atmosphere from our overuse of fossil fuel is also creating a crisis of epidemic proportions. And like it or not, humanity is at the brink of ecological collapse, from ecosystem degradation to increasing ecological footprint. For more than 40 years, humanity demands on nature has exceeded what our planet can replenish. We are currently consuming 1.7 Earth resources at the rate we run our lives today. But in reality, we only have one Earth, not 1.7 Earth. And it is also known that climate change is broadly acknowledged to cause and will continue to cause large-scale disasters around the world. From an increasing carbon dioxide emission in our atmosphere, to increasing temperature of the Earth's surface, to the melting of the polar ice caps and the mountains, and to the increase of sea level, which then leads to more floods, slides, landslides, and other disasters. Many Muslim majority countries around the world are some of the most severely affected by climate change impacts, where millions of people facing food shortage and even deaths. The environment has become a subject of interest in the recent years. However, the idea of conserving the environment as it is understood today is relatively new, having emerged as a matter of concern to the human race about 6 decades ago, since human behavior and activities were increasingly threatening the balance of the natural world. In fact, we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of Earth Day last month. And as the human race crosses a path which we now call progress, it leaves in its wake a trail of destruction that threatens our own survival. The natural world, this earth, is a gift that Allah has bestowed to the humankind. But we fail in keeping such amana, the trust that He has placed on us as His Khalifa, the guardian upon this earth, if we do not treat these wonderful resources He has placed in our hands justly, or we just cause corruption or destruction in a way that would deny future generation its benefits. And I've always been passionate about fighting for environmental and climate justice. As I remember, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, Allah has made the earth green and beautiful, and He has appointed you as stewards over it. This prophetic teaching urges us to be ambassador of our earth and to do what it takes to protect it. And there is no greater threat to our green and beautiful earth than the more frequent and intense droughts, floods, storm, and wildfire brought by climate change. As an Indonesian born Muslim currently living in California, I've seen firsthand the impacts of climate change, both in my native home, Indonesia, with its severe floods and sea level rise, as well as my new adopted home, California, with its severe drought and wildfire. So, as Muslim, we are obligated by our faith and our shared humanity to stand up and fight for all the people suffering from the effects of climate change, wherever, whenever, and however we can. And I was very fortunate back in 2009. I was trained by former Vice President Al Gore in Melbourne, Australia, to join the climate movement. So when we see the news today, from the cropless farmers to the struggling first responders to person just forced to evacuate their flooded home, we all have our reasons for caring about climate change. Rising sea levels are making parts of the world at risk of disappearing into the sea. The earth is becoming parched and dry, making it more or less unsuitable for further cultivation. In fact, global warming does not affect only the temperature of the planet, but also affects the storms all around the world. We have experienced such that in this country in the last few years. Climate change has undeniably affected many vulnerable communities as more and more disasters are happening more rapidly around the globe. Many of our Muslim sisters and brothers around the world live in the areas severely affected by climate change impacts, like heat waves, floods, droughts, or other extreme weather events. And as Muslim, we are obligated by our faith and by our shared humanity to stand up and fight for them and for all people suffering from the effects of climate change. And one of the best way I found to protect the environment is to teach our children to love and appreciate nature. Children by nature love nature. Connecting with nature also helps children engage all their senses. It is the perfect environment in which to learn, explore, inspire creativity, and just let children be children. And for children, the time outdoor is a vital part of growing up. Unfortunately, the disconnect between children and nature is also one of the greatest challenge of our time. According to study, the average American child has just 4 to 7 minutes of unstructured outdoor play each day and spend more than 7 hours staring at TV, computer, or tablet or phone screen. And in addition to that, from the year 2002 to 2003, children ages 6 to 17 years old in the United States spend 50 minutes on average on outdoor activities each week. Compare that to 1 hour and 40 minutes reported by the children of the same age in the years of 1981 to 1982. Of course, they didn't have all the technology back then. So then how do we encourage our children to connect and appreciate nature? We can start when they are young. Encourage them to play in the garden. Let them study and play with leaves, flowers, rocks, soil, and so on. Teach them the name of trees, insects, birds, and animals. And if you love spending time outside, it is even easier to help your children develop this love as well. Another great way to help children connect to nature is to get them help you in the garden. Let them get dirty and dig into the soil where they will discover different kinds of insects, worms, and other creatures. Allow them to plant some vegetables. Show them how to care for plants as they grow and develop. This is a wonderful opportunity for them to learn about nature firsthand. You can also help them set up a bird or butterfly feeder in the garden. Once in a while, maybe you can take them to wildlife sanctuary or national park, or just plan a picnic or outing to parks around your city where you live. Or introduce them to the joys of hiking or other outdoor activities. We can encourage our children to observe their surroundings and give them books about nature and wildlife. Awaken their curiosity. Teach them to observe nature and take notes on what they notice. Have them sketch and draw what they see. Give them guidebooks to the common animals, birds, or trees in your area and help them identify plants and animals they see. And most importantly, make prayers, salat, outdoor in nature with them. Teach them how to make wudu in nature and not to waste water. Tell them that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that Allah has made the earth as a masjid for us. So we can make our salah anywhere in nature, which also means that we have to take care of the earth. Make sure it's clean and pure, not dirty or polluted, just like we take care of our masjid. We need to teach our children to live animal and plants as they are the creation of Allah. And Allah has appointed us to take care of them. Our children will become the leaders of tomorrow. And we desperately need world leaders who have compassion to care for our Mother Earth.